All right, guys, welcome to the next episode of Wholehearted. I am Tyler Patrick, and I'm alone today because, good news, this morning at 3 a.m., Chase and his wife delivered their baby, their first baby boy, the first baby of their family. And so they're up in Idaho Falls taking care of him and all of those things, and they're really excited about it, and we're excited for him. I talked to him early this morning on the phone, you guys, and as you get to know Chase, you're going to understand that he is just a man with a heart of gold, with an insane love for people and for life and a zest for living. And he's really in tune and in touch with his own emotions. And when I was talking to him today, it really came through in the phone call just how thoroughly excited he is. I know he was really excited beforehand, but there's something that happens when the baby finally comes, and when that instant new chapter of your life suddenly begins, that shifts things. And it can crumble a grown man into a puddle with the sight of their first child and that feeling of their breath on your skin and the warmth on your chest when you lay them on your chest. And Chase was describing all of those things to me, and I could just hear it in him, and really excited for him. May I reach out and just congratulate both he and Chelsea. Chelsea's doing really good. She's healthy. The baby's really healthy. They're really excited. So you guys are stuck with me today alone. And I wanted to talk with you guys today a little bit about a principle that I use in my therapy that will lead to an understanding. If you can gain and understand this principle, it will lead to the ability to master a lot of the other skills that we have and to find a whole lot of freedom in your lives and in your relationships. I was trained in a type of therapy a long time ago called Dialectical Behavior Therapy, DBT. Now that doesn't really mean anything to the normal person, but one of the premises of this type of therapy is that word dialectical. And I want to talk a little bit about what a dialectic is and how it applies to our lives, and how understanding it can lead to more freedom and to a more full and rich, wholehearted life. So the idea behind a dialectic, you think of like a dialogue. What is a dialogue? A dialogue is a discussion between two people, right? So it's back and forth, and there's this give and take that happens with the dialogue. What a dialectic is where you take two principles, two ideas, two thoughts, two concepts that seem to be in opposition with each other, and you do the work to find the truth in both sides and to synthesize them into a middle place. It sounds kind of like a compromise. It's not really a compromise in some ways, but what it is it's finding the kernel of truth in both sides. So an example of a dialectic that I've had to learn to use in my therapy, and something that actually makes me the kind of therapist that I am, is that I've learned the basic dialectic that people in general are usually doing the very best they can with what they have to work with, regardless of what's going on in their lives. Now, as a therapist, when someone comes into my office and says, yeah, I look at pornography every single day and I can't seem to stop it, I'm going to lose my job and my wife and my kids are about to leave me, that really shouldn't be the best they can do. And yet, because of the circumstances, because of their lives, because of the past history, because of everything else that nobody else sees underneath the surface, that's a developed method that this person has gained to try to cope with life, with whatever's gone on in their life, to make it need to be coped with. So on that side of it, they're doing the best they can, and they're in my office, and if I sit there and just tell them, yeah, you're doing the best you can, good luck, I don't know what to do, I'm going to do them no good at all. Number one, they're not going to get any help, I won't be effective, and they're going to leave, and they're never going to actually improve their life. So the other side to that is they need to do better. So the dialectic is, this person is doing the best they can, and if I can see them in that light, I can now meet them with empathy and understanding and patience and support. And the other side is they need to do better, which allows me to push them for change. It allows me to say things that are truthful, that they may not like to hear, but that they need to hear, and that deep down they want to hear, because the whole reason they've come into therapy is for change. So that's a dialectic. Another dialectic is one that we run into constantly in the world that we live in, you guys, and our world doesn't really help with this at all, is this idea of needs and wants. If I live in just a state of meeting just my needs, I do a pretty good job of meeting my needs, but my life has no savor, it has no zest, it has no energy. Whereas if I live in this consumer-based world that we live in, where I've got to have everything that I want, and why shouldn't I have everything I want instantly right now? I can go and pursue my wants, and what they're preaching and teaching in all of this advertising is, yes, happiness will come when you get what you want. Well, there's a piece of truth in that, in the sense that when we pursue our wants, when we go after them responsibly, and when we attain some of them responsibly, there is an element of satisfaction and joy and excitement and happiness that can come through those things. But if it's over pursued, we end up in debt, we end up losing our homes, we end up losing our freedom, and ultimately we can't live at either one of those extremes. So the middle ground is be responsible and meet your needs, and make room in your life to pursue and develop your wants and desires. Finding that healthy balance is something that dialectical behavioral therapy and mindfulness would call walking the middle path. I want to give you one more example of a dialectic and share kind of how this plays out and how it played out in my office just yesterday in some therapy. I had a couple come in. They've been in a 2-week fight over whether or not the husband should wear his helmet when he's driving around town. And they live in kind of a really small, low-key town, and he says, you know what, I don't mind wearing my helmet. I actually wear it most of the time, but occasionally I just like to take my helmet off when I'm rolling around town because I love the feeling of freedom that it provides. I love the feeling of excitement it provides. It actually makes me remember that I'm mortal. It actually makes me more cautious. I like that feeling of knowing I'm mortal, and it reminds me to savor life. Right? So he's over here. So the other day he left his helmet home sitting in a place that he calls the spot for his helmet. And then his wife texted him some passive aggressive message and said, hey, where's your helmet today, roughly? And he wrote back, it's sitting in its spot. And then she wrote back another text, and they ended up in a big fight over whether or not he should wear his helmet. Well, the bigger issue isn't whether he should wear his helmet right now. It's also what's going on relationally in both of them. So when he receives those texts and feels micromanaged, he feels like he's having his freedom threatened. And on the other side, she's here feeling like he doesn't care about her and the kids. He's not being responsible. He's maybe being a little bit reckless with his life, which makes her worry about his mental health. And she worries about losing him. But she never really says that. She just throws out this text message that says, you know, what are you doing? Like, you're gonna try to kill yourself, right? Now, she's trying to guilt him in to wearing his helmet because she really just loves him deep down inside. Now, the dialectic is this, is that she, along with probably everybody else who's watching this right now, would agree that everyone's probably thinking he's an idiot for not wearing his helmet. Because, of course, safety is an issue. Responsibility is a necessity. And as a man, that's part of his responsibility. Like, we live for that as men, to be called up to responsibility, and in this case to provide for a wife and children. And she's saying, live up to your responsibility and see the fear that I'm in because I worry about losing you and being left with this huge burden of trying to run a family while also grieving the loss of somebody that I love desperately by being irresponsible with this thing that could very easily save your life, right? So the dialectic is, and this is something with the masculine heart, is that a man, in order to feel whole and complete as a man, he needs that responsibility to step into something bigger than him, in this case his family. He needs that to go and to provide, to test himself against it, to show up and to be there for his wife and his children. And the other side is that in order to do that, he also needs a healthy sense of adventure and excitement. A man needs to keep his heart alive by being engaged in something that makes him feel alive. So the pursuit of what he's going after is true. He needs to go find a way to be healthy in the pursuit of his adventure, in the pursuit of remembering that he's human. He needs to be able to carve things into his life that allow him to go and pursue that, and he still needs to be responsible. So as I was talking to them in therapy last night, they were fighting over the helmet, and it was never even about the helmet. It was about these two principles. And after about a half hour of going around in circles, we were able to spiral down into what the real depth was. And he was able to say, I'm afraid of losing my freedom. I'm sick of living in this world where all I do is just go through the motions and perform my duty, and I just don't feel alive, and I feel depressed, and I feel empty, and it makes me triggered, and it makes me want to act out in all the ways that I'm trying to stop, right? That's real. That's true. That's vulnerable. And when he was able to share those things and she was able to meet him with, of course I want you to be alive. I'm not opposed to you going and pursuing some healthy ways of feeling that excitement, that adrenaline rush, that adventure of being alive. I just want to be able to understand that the ways that you're going to pursue that are going to line up with being around long term, because I don't want to lose you. Now her side, I don't want to lose you. I would miss you, and I would hurt, and I would ache, and I would grieve, and I would be beside myself in trying to figure out how to pick up the role that you so ably do. And I want you to realize how much you mean to us, and to show that in your actions by being responsible with the way you ride your motorcycle. Now all of a sudden, what went from a fight is now to a deeply connected conversation where both of them were able to then nestle in and say, he said, man, my heart's starting to soften. You're right. I probably do need to find some different ways to feel that sense of excitement. And I'm still going to do it. And there might be an occasion that I'm still going to probably forget, and I'm going to ride my motorcycle without my helmet. But I understand where you're coming from. And I want you to know that I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere, and I'm fully committed. And I want to keep my heart alive so that I can show up the way that you need me to as your husband and as a father to our children. And by the end of that discussion, that dialectic had come into fruition that, yes, healthy adventure and a sense of responsibility can live together. It just might not be in the form of wearing a motorcycle helmet. So think about these other things in your life, things that seem to be in conflict, where most of the time we live in a black and white space where one or the other has to be the truth. We think either or. We think black or white. Instead, we need to think both and. Both of these things are true, and there's a way to synthesize these ideas. And in most cases, we can do that. And when we do that, we will develop deeper relationships because it leads to authenticity, it leads to empathy, it leads to deeper closeness in relationships because trust can be there. And it also allows us to be more productive with whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish, whether that be at work or at home, because now we can help other people get what they're wanting at the same time we're able to share what we're wanting as well. So that's a skill to be looking at, and you'll be able to find a whole bunch of different kinds of dialectics out in the world. Anytime you find two people locked up in a deadlock, there's probably a dialectic at place that somebody needs to step in and help them find the middle ground. So hopefully that's helpful today, you guys. We're looking forward to being able to continue to share some of these things. Obviously, I'm a work in progress myself. My wife and I run into these things all the time. We have plenty of discussions about needs and wants. I think right now, one of the ones that we're really battling with is we want to take a trip to New Zealand. And I'm over here on one side saying, let's be frugal and let's be responsible. Let's make sure we're taking care of our finances. And she's over here saying, man, you got to live a little. And all of the All Blacks, the New Zealand All Blacks that I like, they're going to be retiring soon. And I really want to get to New Zealand to watch a rugby match before they all retire. So now somehow we've got to figure out, and we're in that process, how we're going to merge both of those needs and wants, because I don't want to be irresponsible, but I do want to be able to go and pursue that living and that excitement that comes from being in a world where we have opportunities to look around and do whatever we want. So think about those things in your own life, thinking about that with your health and fitness, your diet, your nutrition, your relationships, even at work. You'll see dialectics all over the place, and when you see them, start practicing finding the kernel of truth. Thank you guys. Have a good week.